To be back with On My Way Up movement, and I'm back with an awesome word. So I wanted to tap in real quick with you all. Happy Sunday, by the way. I had a follower ask me a really powerful question. She said, how do you know if you have a familiar spirit or if it's just physical illness? Now, I'm going to assume that she's speaking of physical illness by biblical definition, which would be infirmity. Infirmity meaning that no physician can heal you. There's no cure for it. All you can do is be treated for it, medicated, something you have to learn to cope with for the rest of your life. That's an infirmity. Infirmities are 99.9% spiritually related. Okay, even if it's just a consequence of us not being good stewards over our body. Okay, it's still spiritually related. Okay. And the only person that can heal you is God. So this is another way that you know that this infirmity has spiritual roots or spiritual implication. And so the reason why I say that familiar spirits and infirmity are kissing cousins because familiar spirits cause death. Familiar spirits are in business with death. If you're in operation, okay, in cooperation with the familiar spirit, the consequence is death. And we know this from the accounts in the Bible. When we read about familiar spirits or household servants in the Bible, oftentimes, every time they were sentenced to death. A witch was insufferable. She was to suffer death. A familiar spirit was a defiling spirit, okay? It was, that person, that witch, that medium was to be sentenced to death by stoning. Okay. So death is very, very, very close to a familiar spirit. Familiar spirit does not have to be a spirit that has ran through your bloodline and is a family thing or a generational thing. A familiar spirit could attach itself, assign itself to you via you giving it legal access through sin, whether it's a relationship, a sexual relationship, maybe, or you giving information to a frenemy. Okay, God is telling you that you need to leave this person alone, if this person doesn't have good intentions, and you're being disobedient and continuously disclosing your business, your information to this person. They're under a monitoring spirit, and a familiar spirit is taking advantage of that, becoming familiar with you. A familiar spirit is very malevolent. Okay, its assignment, its job is to manipulate you or manipulate your destiny. This is why they were to be killed in the ancient days because they were manipulating people's destiny. That's what witches do. Okay, good or bad. They forgo things, they forgo due process, they pick and choose what they want or how they want people to feel, think. They want to control. They're manipulating people's destiny. And so a familiar spirit will manipulate a child of God's destiny through infirmity, through sickness. I mean, sickness is really distracting. I don't even care if it's just a common cold. I know allergies are very distracting for me. Okay, so an infirmity, something very painful, something very uncomfortable, something that's probably, sapping people's finances, sapping a person's finances, kind of, weakening your psychology, stressing you out, causing you depression and sadness. It's distracting. Okay, and that is the assignment of a familiar spirit is to distract you, derail you, detour you, delay you, and defile you. An infirmity is defiling, it defiles you. Okay? Sickness is defiling. As unfortunate, unfair as that may sound, it is. Okay. And so this is the assignment of a familiar spirit to cause death, death, whether it be premature death or not, death. And so this is why it is important for you who are dealing with infirmity to take a look at that, to have a conversation with the Holy Spirit. I know one of the clear out signs of having a familiar spirit could be you having dreams of dead people. And this is a very common thing. You will hear a lot of people of God, pastors, ministers, prophets, prophetess will all say the same thing. People with familiar spirits have dreams of dead people because a familiar spirit is in business with death. Okay, witches, mediums, they're bringing up the dead. We know about Saul, in I think Second Samuel, who can no longer hear from God. prophets can no longer receive a word from God for Saul. And so Saul gets desperate, and he wants to know the future, which this is how a lot of people are manipulated into occultic activity. They want to know the future. They're not deviling into it necessarily for, direct intentional evil purposes. They simply just want to know the future, which is not our place outside of the Holy Spirit, outside of revelation via the Holy Spirit. And so Saul wanted to know what was going to happen. Should he go to war? How was his war going to go? How was his kingdom going to go? And everything like that. He got desperate. And so he went and sought a witch, the witch of Endor, who was a medium, who was able to deal with the dead. The Bible specifically says she was a woman with a familiar spirit. Okay, and she was able to speak with the dead. She conjured up Samuel, which was really not Samuel, but was a masquerading spirit, masquerading as Samuel, and he, discloses to Saul, his destiny, his future, and it was death. Okay, the masquerading spirit, the familiar spirit came up out of the ground, and immediately the demonic spirit came up out of the ground and immediately cursed Saul and his whole bloodline with death. Okay, we know that Saul and his whole bloodline would die the very next day. Like I said, witches, people with familiar spirits in the ancient days, were cursed with death. They were sentenced to death. So death and familiar spirits are interchangeable, and sickness is a good way to try to cause premature death in a believer's life. And when premature death is in place, what that means is that the person dies earlier than what was meant for them. That person dies before they can, you know, uh, get into their destiny, and do everything that God put them here to do, what they were destined to do. They died before they were able to do that, to complete that. And that is the assignment of a familiar spirit. So, yes, familiar spirits, infirmity, physical illness are often very related. If you're seeing dead people in your dreams, especially dead family members, that's a good indicator. If you are seeing strangers in your dreams, okay, that seem to be familiar with you, and you seem to be familiar with, I know that I used to dream of dead people all the time. I used to dream of my dead auntie, you know and she actually wanted me to lay down in the bed with her and go to sleep. It wasn't anything sexual that this spirit was trying to do. It just wanted me to lay down. And even in a dream, I thought, why would you come back from the grave to want me to go to sleep with you? And I immediately rebuked it, rejected, woke up, canceled, the assignment of premature death, and moved on. But that's pretty deep because, I often think about, had I been ignorant to any of this, what would have happened if I really would have laid down in the bed and went to sleep? Would I have woken up? Would death would have been right around the corner for me after that? I woke up with a feeling that, my life was really on the line at that moment. That was the feeling that I woke up with. And of course, I was so grateful for knowledge, because knowledge, it delivers the just. And so I was delivered from premature death because then I was able, to fight against it. And I hope this video does the same for you all who are having dreams of eating and drinking and interacting with dead family members or deceased people. Okay. And then on top of that, strange people that you, even in the dream, you act with them as though you know them, and they act towards you as though they know you. That's a familiar spirit. Those are good indicators that you're dealing with familiar spirits. And so how do you break covenant? Because apparently, for a familiar spirit to be in your life, it has legal access. Somebody gave it legal access, whether it was through generations, through family, or whether it was something that you specifically did that opened up the gateway for this familiar spirit to attach itself to you. This is why it's very, critical for you to understand that you need to be careful who you tell your business to. Some people are trying to get familiar with you so they can destroy you. so that they can hinder you and delay you, especially jealous and envious people. Okay. But, I digressed a little bit, but to answer the question, yes, infirmity, sickness, physical illness is often related to the activity or the operation of a familiar spirit. I hope that this word blessed you. Please like, subscribe, share, comment, and tell me what y'all think about this content, and I'll be back with another one.